Man, I never thought we would get a domain expansion so quickly for Hikari. And by the way, this chapter, he's been super calm this entire time. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but he's just been keeping it cool, hands in the pocket, everything. Yeah, man, chapter 182 of JJK, it's a pretty good chapter. Gege, I don't, like, I've explained this multiple times, but he will keep it short for the sake of getting into what's important. And, I've thought to myself, is that really such a good thing? And maybe it's just the way he does it, but you get a lot of the character with the one chapter that he gives them, and then what kind of happens within the fight, like their belief system and what they believe, like what they fight for. Kind of, they get to express that with their curse technique a lot of the time. So you get to know more about the character without having to spend 3-4 chapters on their like backstory or something like that, right? So yeah, man, it was a great chapter. But let's start at the beginning. So immediately we get to see Charles's spear pin, essentially, right? And he kind of goes on and on about he's so he starts off by kind of quoting the author Hoshino Katsuda, which is the author for D. Gray Man, and he kind of says it in a way that it sounds like a poem. And Hikari's like, since when is an author's note a poem, right? And for him, he kind of explains his curse technique, which is fiction. He talks about how reality wasn't something that satisfied him, so he looked towards fiction. He was both as a reader and an author. He lost all his motivation, right? So he asked them, well, what do you call this feeling? And Hikari replies back, boredom. He's like, no, it's despair. And that's when the fight basically starts. We see he kind of chips Hikari there with the pen. So it's super sharp, right? And we see them kind of fight back and forth. He's trying to stab him with the pen. And then we see he hits him in the chest. Now, it's this big square that's kind of lit up. And immediately when that happens, we notice a difference. We see his eyes like sharpen up. And he's able to dodge Hikari's kick. And Hikari notices it. And again, like kind of like Yuta, he's super calm. He just calmly notices that he dodged the kick. It's like, whoa, because that should have landed. But he dodges it, and he's able to hit Hikari. And he hits him back a pretty good distance. And he notices, like, yeah, that move, you could say it was a reflexive dodge, but, he knows that it's more than that. And then we get the explanation. Charles says that's a manga panel. It's a few frames ahead of real life. So he's able to essentially see into the future. And we'll notice, but throughout the chapter, you see him kind of, every time Hikari will attack, he's like staring at that manga panel. You think he's staring at Hikari, but he's staring at that panel. And he explains it as in, Charles explains it where when you turn the page of a manga and you look at like the bottom left page, right? Because that's the last page, or that's the last panel on the page. That's essentially what he's doing. So really interesting power. I like how he kind of implements a manga power into JJK. It's kind of cool. And I think Gege is particularly enjoying this character, I have a feeling. But yeah, so he says he can see about 1 second in the future, and then we see Hikari blitz. He gets fast out of nowhere, and he just barely dodges. We see Charles mention, if I hadn't activated the G battle staff already, I'd be a goner, right? So he dodges the punch. He hits Hikari back again. He said, so you can really see it, Hikari says. He said, oi. He says, we, or oi. But that's not all. And so we see him like staring intently, and then Hikari literally disappears, and then he's actually able to hit Charles. So what happens here is, what Hikari's method of fighting right now is just going to be, I'm going to get out of his complete vision, and then try and attack him from there. But what that then leads to is he knows he's going to attack from behind or maybe even above, so he knows where to watch. But it's not that simple. So he tries to attack from the blind spot. he was able to kick Charles, and Charles notices, what's with this guy's cursed energy? It's coarse like a file. It hurts. You know, and this was similar to maybe like 10 chapters ago when Yuji went up against Hikari. He noticed that his cursed energy, like the way he fights, it's tough. So that's something unique about Hikari. His cursed energy is very, very dense. And then we get an explanation again. He's like, well, if I know an attack is coming from my blind spot, and then we see him take the pen, try and hit him from behind, but Hikari blocks. And then he's able to hit Charles again. And then one more time in the stomach. And then we get Hikari saying, an otaku like you will always find a reason to pick a fight, even over the simplest things. Which I find that line kind of funny, because it kind of reminds me of people on Twitter. Me in particular, I don't take anything seriously on Twitter, but there would be so many arguments on specifically Twitter about topics like this. I feel like YouTube is a bit different. It's a lot more tame. Reddit too sometimes, but yeah, I just find that line funny. It reminds me of a lot of the arguments that are had in the anime community. And then he's like, so I've got to break you completely. And then we see that Charles gets another little scratch on his forehead. And then he says, are you trying to say once the vessel noticed the heart is scarred? How naive, my vessel has already shattered to dust, and now all I am is the turbid flow of emotions that spilled from it. So, Charles, you know, he's been distraught because of this whole manga situation, and it really shows. He said, now I'm able to see 2 seconds into your future. So, it stacks. Pretty cool, right? So, if he would hit you 10 times, he gets 10 seconds into the future. So, honestly, if you can hit it multiple times, you're kind of crazy. He said, so I'll be waiting for you in the blind spot of the future. What are you going to do? And then Hikari, like I said at the beginning, domain expansion, restless gambler, right? And then we see Charles, literally we see like his eyes whiten. We see it looks like a vibration kind of went out throughout his body, and then we get a little note. Because of the sure hit effect, an explanation of the rules for Hikari's domain and technique are appearing in Charles's mind. So this is interesting. So this is going to be something where both of them know the rules, and whatever happens, I'm assuming it's going to be some type of crazy gamble that maybe could affect Hikari too. So yeah, it was a really short chapter, but you know, we're really getting to see Hikari fight this quickly, and a domain expansion this quickly. I can't wait to see what happens. Let me know what you guys think in the comment about Charles, Hikari, this fight. I'd be curious. See ya.